Charles Darwin's theory of evolution stood in contrast with the typical creationism views of his time and sparked a change in the ideological beliefs of the origins of humanity. When one hears the term evolution, this might come to mind. However, upon visiting the unique Galapagos Islands, an archipelago off the coast of Ecuador, and conducting research, one can understand that Darwin was not out to shock the world and threaten the creationism beliefs of his time, but rather a scientist dedicated to trying to understand the natural world around him. The natural world around him, like pink flamingos searching for krill.
This is a land iguana.
These are blue-footed boobies nesting, and this is a blue herring nesting. A brief biography of Charles Darwin, 1809 through 1882. Charles Darwin was born in this house, the Mount, near Shrewsbury, Shropshire, England, on February 12, 1809. He was the son of Robert Waring Darwin and Susanna Wedgwood. As a child, he loved studying animals and gardening, traits that he would carry with him through his college years. Darwin studied at the Christ College of Cambridge and at the University of Edinburgh. John Stevens Henslaw perhaps influenced Darwin the most, as he taught Darwin about botany and recommended Darwin for the naturalist position aboard the HMS Beagle. The Voyage of the Beagle and the Birth of a Theory. The voyage of the Beagle began in 1831 and lasted 5 years, eventually returning to England in 1836. It was this journey that served as the catalyst for Darwin's natural selection theory. On September 15, 1835, the HMS Beagle arrived in the Galapagos. And on June 23, 2016, Zach Morales arrived in Galapagos. Darwin observed many animals on the islands. He observed marine iguanas. He observed blue-footed boobies.
Right now, just now, the blue-footed boobies were mating.
He observed gliding giant turtles of the sea and the lumbering tortoises of the land. He observed pink flamingos and he observed sea lions. But mostly Darwin studied the finches and the mockingbirds in order to develop his theory of natural selection. He studied their beaks carefully, noting how they differed ever so slightly from island to island. Darwin noted in the 13 species of ground finches, a nearly perfect gradation may be traced from a beak extraordinarily thick to one so fine it may be compared to that of a warbler. In the case of the mockingbird, Darwin ascertained that the one species of mockingbird is exclusively found on Charles Island, while another is on Abermavle Island. These species are not characterized by the markings of the plumage alone, but likewise by the size and form of the bill.
This is a female cactus finch. Watch how it uses its beak to eat the cactus to get into the center. And on the left is a male. It has a darker feathers, and this is a male cactus finch using its beak again to eat inside.
When Darwin was ready, he presented his theory of natural selection.
The evolution of species by means of natural selection, whereby organisms better adapted to their environment survive longer and produce more offspring, thus increasing the fitness of the next generation. Characteristics that are not beneficial disappear from the gene, whereas natural selection eliminates individuals from genes unfit for survival.
Theory of natural selection. If any one species does not become modified and improved in a corresponding degree with its competitors, it will soon be exterminated. Animals with the best characteristics are the ones that survive in nature. They will produce more offspring, which over time will form new species. Charles Darwin takes a stand and presents his theory to the world, and his critics respond.
Evolution was a dangerous idea, and only bad people, such as French atheists, materialists, freethinkers, would dare to speculate that species had naturally arisen in the course of time. He knew that he had to confine his thoughts to private notebooks.
And it would take 7 years of intensive research before he felt ready to write to a trusted friend.
At last, gleams of light have come, and I'm almost convinced, quite contrary to the opinion I started with, that species are not immutable. It is like confessing a murder.
When Darwin published The Origin of the Species in 1859, almost all leading scientists and philosophers were Christian. They believed that God had brought about the perfect adaptation of all organisms to one another and their environment. They feared that Darwin's theory removed God from the equation. Darwin's wife Emma helped him present his theory to the critics. She pointed out that he was not trying to disprove the existence of God, rather trying to show how creation really occurred. It may not be metaphorically said that natural selection is daily and hour scrutinizing through the world, every variation, even the slightest, rejecting which is bad, preserving and adding up all that is good to improve each organic being. In other words, old species die out, new species are created. It may be said that God simply did not create all the species at once. One of Darwin's fiercest critics was a former teacher, Adam Sedgwick. He argued that Darwin had ignored morality and that to accept the idea of creation by natural selection would sink the human race into a low grade of degradation. However, Charles Darwin did not recant his theory. He stood his ground, and the worldview of creation has never been the same. By shifting emphasis away from creationism to natural selection, a powerful spiritual and intellectual revolution was ignited, as most educated people no longer question the theory, but rather accept it as a fact. His theory forms from the basis of genetically engineered crops. As scientists have learned how to speed up natural selection process to produce stronger, more resistant food. In conclusion, Darwin's theory certainly left a lasting impact. However, his studies and observations never intended to negate the existence of God. As Darwin himself stated, there is a grandeur in this natural selection view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed by the Creator into a few forms or into one. And that whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so a simple beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. And once one has visited the Galapagos, it is easy to understand Darwin's conclusion. Going to the Galapagos today, tourists can visit the Charles Darwin Research Station and learn about his ideas. Or they can visit Tortuga Bay, a nice, tranquil beach.
Hello, fellow historians. We are here at Charles Darwin Research Center. Let's go.
Thank you to these people. My dad for all the technology parts. My mom for helping me stay on task and wording my script. And most of all, my grandparents, Laura and Marcelo, for taking me to the Galapagos Islands for a blast.